The Dunkirk Light in southern France at 194 feet is visible from a boat approximately 10 feet above sea level from 28 miles away. At this distance on the ball Earth, the light should be hidden behind 190 feet of curvature. The light at Cape Bonavista, Newfoundland is 150 feet above sea level and visible from 35 miles, where it should be below 490 feet of curvature. The lighthouse steeple of St. Botolph's Parish Church in Boston is 290 feet tall and visible from over 40 miles, where it should be hidden below a full 800 feet of curvature. The Isle of Wight Lighthouse in England is 180 feet high and can be seen up to 42 miles away, where it should be below 996 feet of curvature. The Cape Lagullias Lighthouse in South Africa is 33 feet high, 238 feet above sea level, and can be seen for over 50 miles, where it should be below 1,400 feet of curvature. The Statue of Liberty in New York stands 326 feet above sea level, and on a clear day can be seen as far as from 60 miles away. At that distance on the ball Earth, Lady Liberty would be an impossible 2,074 feet below the curvature.
There's a place in Bolivia called Salar de Uyuni, which is a salt flat. It's literally 100 miles wide one way and 80 miles across. And it's perfectly flat. And when it rains, literally you get an inch of water and it looks like a perfect mirror. Now, how does that happen on a sphere? Yeah, it shows you that, you know, if you're one end of this salt flat, you can see perfectly clearly the other end 100 miles away. So it's just showing you that the Earth is flat, and without the effect of the waves in the sea, you'll be able to see a whole lot further. Refi studied this video meticulously, looking for some kind of mistake or some kind of evidence, and he realized that he could see the moon. So he went online to a website called timeanddate.com, where it will show you graphically where the moon and sun is at any time on any day. And he did a bit of detective work to find out exactly when the rocket was fired, and found that the moon should have been on the other side of the planet, over Australia. Now, the rocket was 75 miles up and it could see the moon, but anybody down on the ground wouldn't be able to see it. But the point is that if the moon was over Australia, on the other side of it would be on the other side of the planet, which is, okay, there. So down there on the other side of the planet, and the rocket went up here. So there's no way that rocket should have been able to see the moon on the other side of the planet.
One flight that should be a simple 11-hour shot across the Indian Ocean is from Johannesburg, South Africa to Perth, Australia. However, this flight takes a detour north, stopping in either Dubai, Hong Kong, or Malaysia to refuel, for a total flight time averaging over 18 hours. This ridiculously wayward detour is frustrating to say the least, but on the flat Earth map starts to make sense. Another quick and easy flight, you would think, is from Johannesburg to Santiago, Chile. While an easy 12-hour flight below the Tropic of Capricorn is to be expected, instead every flight crosses the equator to refuel in Senegal, all the way near the Tropic of Cancer, for a total flight time of 19 hours. Though it doesn't make sense on the globe, as you can see it fits perfectly on the flat Earth map. A third flight from Johannesburg is to São Paulo, Brazil, which should be a direct 10-hour flight across the 25th degree south latitude, but instead every flight crosses into the north to stop in London to refuel. making the total flight time 24 hours. From Santiago, Chile to Sydney, Australia, a straight 15-hour flight across the South Pacific is expected. Despite refueling options in either New Zealand or any island in the South Pacific, the flight stops all the way at Los Angeles to refuel before continuing south to its destination. As already stated, these detours make no sense on the globe, but are explained and work perfectly well on the flat Earth map. Model, Antarctica is said to be a continent of ice situated at the bottom of the ball from 78 degrees south latitude. It should therefore not have a perimeter greater than 12,000 miles. However, early explorers like Captain Cook and James Clark Ross, in attempting to circumnavigate Antarctica, took 3 to 4 years to do so, and clocked in the distance traveled at 50 to 60,000 miles. That's twice the circumference of the equator. But the real
We've been taught that Earth is spinning, with its surface at the equator moving at a speed of 1,000 miles per hour. Earth is also zooming around the Sun at around 67,000 miles per hour. In addition, our solar system whirls around the center of our galaxy at some 490,000 miles per hour. You've never felt a thing on this motionless plane, but besides that, we've been seeing the same constellations and stars in the skies for thousands of years. This is because the stars are revolving year after year in the same positions around us. It's amazing how most of humanity is fooled into thinking the opposite, even while our senses tell us otherwise.
His balloon, when he stepped out on the platform, you know, the curvature of the Earth, yeah, it looked very obvious. Oh, everybody pointed it and said, oh, look, there's a curvature. But when you actually looked at the ground, when you looked at the Earth, well, it was New Mexico. That's where he jumped. The whole Earth that you saw there was New Mexico. So if that was a curvature, the Earth must be very, very small indeed, and New Mexico must take up a huge part of it. Yeah, it was a fisheye lens to curve that, to make that curve. And when he jumped, it took, I think it took him like 2 hours to get to that height. Yeah, he went straight up. In that 2 hours, the Earth should have rotated away quite a distance. But I think he only landed something like 70 kilometers away from where he sort of went up in the first place. And that can be attributed to the wind, you know. So no, I mean there's no proof whatsoever.
In October of 1929, Andrea again tried to focus the world's attention on the controversy by proving the notion the Earth spins to be absolute nonsense. It was reasoned that if a dirigible was to go aloft in England and hold itself perfectly static, then by the accepted theory the Earth should rotate underneath it and New York should come into view some 4 or 5 hours later. In fact, England was never lost from view. The dirigible eventually ran low on fuel and had to land. Andrea insisted she had made her point. But
the Earth, said to spin eastward at a speed of 1,600 kilometers per hour at the equator. So then, how is a plane able to fly eastward at half that speed and reach its destination in more or less the same time as the return flight, when in fact the plane should never reach its eastward destination before it comes rushing up from behind it? And how is it even remotely possible to safely land an aircraft on a runway moving at such a speed? I shouldn't have to mention that it would be disastrously impossible. We can discuss rotational speeds all day, while some claim that
if you look at the look out on a day that's got broken cloud, you'll see that the sun rays will come out at an angle. Most people have seen this. The rays come down at angles. If the sun was 93 million miles away, then all the light will be coming parallel. So if you imagine, there's no way to show 93 million miles, but something way over there, all the light that reaches this globe will be parallel. There's no way that light can come that far and spread out like that. Now, if you follow those light rays, you'll see exactly where the sun is. And as I said, it works out to be about 3,100 miles. Now, if that's the case, and the sun is circling over this flat plane, yeah, its light range is limited. So it's illuminating the path of the Earth. It's like over at the moment. So, say over Europe, it might, or over South America there, it's over there. Well, Australia's going to be in the dark because the sun isn't going to throw enough light to illuminate Australia. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, most people say,
further demonstrating that the distance traveled by sunlight is not in the millions of miles is the fact that if the heat of the sun were indeed traversing the 93 million miles as claimed by modern science, then the stark difference in the sun's ability to heat the tropics versus the polar regions of this alleged relative speck shouldn't even exist, as the distance to the polar regions from the equator is just a mere 0.00004% further, or just 1/25,000th of the distance. Of course, sticking to the sun, another contrasting point between the northern and southern regions is the midnight sun, a distinctly Arctic phenomenon occurring every year during the summer solstice, where, for several days, any observer significantly far north can watch the sun travel in circles overhead, not setting for upwards of 72 hours. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, corresponding with the Arctic midnight sun, the Royal Belgian Geographical Society notes that from May 17th to July 21st, the sun doesn't even rise above the Antarctic horizon. This is, of course, because during those days, the sun is at his innermost cycle, revolving tightly above and around the northern center. Though scientists will claim that the midnight sun is also an Antarctic experience, there are no uncut videos demonstrating this, nor are any independent explorers allowed into Antarctica to either verify or refute this claim. But that issue's a whole other can of worms.
We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
During Operation High Jump, Admiral Byrd discovered the outer boundaries of the firmament. Many of his men's planes were disappearing very quickly. A lot of them were crashing into invisible barriers and disintegrating in mid-flight. It was shortly after discovering this barrier that Byrd discontinued his mission and returned home. What happened is Byrd's planes encountered the walls of the vaulted dome. Soon after, many measures like the Antarctica Treaty and a consistent military presence at the ice wall were put in place to cover up the structure of our enclosed world system. while also preventing unwarranted intrusion, which could lead to an announcement of the discovery of the Earth's dome. Here are some photos of the ice wall which the dome is fastened to. Sadly, we don't have as many as we would like, since this area is heavily protected by military presence.
Doing. Let's see. Okay, I hope you can see this. They did flights, and it says, these flights prove the inland areas to be featureless in character, with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Okay, I have no idea what that means. There seems to be only one definition for the word dome.
Nut is the goddess of the sky. She is seen star-covered, arching over the earth, representing its dome. In Greek mythology, Uranus was the primeval god of the sky. The Greeks imagined the sky as a solid dome of brass, whose edges descended to rest upon the outermost limits of the flat earth. Uranus was the literal sky, and Gaia the earth. In the Roman era, he was often depicted as Aeon, god of eternal time, in the form of a man holding the zodiac wheel, standing above Gaia. The Hebrews believed the sky was a solid dome. They called this solid vault of heaven the Rakia, with the sun, moon, and stars beneath. In Indian mythology, the dome is called Brahmanda. This is the structure of the world according to Finnish mythology, showing a dome with the stars projected onto it. In the Aboriginal conception of the world, the earth was circular and flat, covered by the dome of the sky, which stretched out to the horizon. And there have been many ancient artifacts found which the mainstream has called stone handbags. But as you can see, there's no area to even carry anything. These were not handbags, they're artistic depictions of the dome here on flat Earth. So many ancient peoples knew about this dome and wove it into their worldview. The elite would have us believe that these are just made-up cosmologies, invented by peoples who were too scientifically ignorant to understand reality. But there is no coincidence that the same description of a flat earth and dome is so common. These cultures around the world had special knowledge about the nature of this place we are living in. The dome is connected to catastrophes that have been recorded throughout the ages. Milky Way's Great Rift. The definition of rift is a crack, split, or break in something. The Great Rift we see when we look at the sky is not a series of dust clouds like the liars at NASA would have us believe, but a literal crack in the dome. The Mayans called this the Dark Rift before any scientists had named it the Great Rift. The Bible refers to this crack as the windows of heaven. It was through these windows, through the dark rift, that the waters of the great floods fell. Over the years, much evidence has come forth that a worldwide flood happened 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, the same time period many Christians point to as when the Great Flood occurred. Creation narrative. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." So, if there is a dome, how are meteorites explained? Debris floats around in the currents of the waters above the dome, occasionally hitting the barrier with enough force to penetrate it. This debris falls to the earth as meteorites. The composition of meteorites is very similar to that of the rocks and crust found on the ocean floor. Most of the ocean floor is basalt. Basalt contains primarily pyroxene, plagioclase, and oftentimes olivine. And the most abundant minerals in meteorites are pyroxene, plagioclase, and olivine. I'm therefore proposing that the waters above have a similar basalt that is found on our own ocean floors, and that these chunks from time to time hit our flat plane. It's been suggested that Libyan desert glass, mysterious shards of a glass-like material which, according to the scientists, has an unknown origin, are pieces of the dome that have been shed. Libyan desert glass is unlike any other glass. It is a form of molten glass but has no clear layers of other minerals. It is 98% molten silica. It has an extremely high formation temperature of 3092 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's extremely resilient, like any dome above us would be. Perhaps this is the molten glass described in the Bible's book of Job. Hast thou stretched out the heavens, which are strong, and as a molten glass?
NASA can't even make the same layout twice for some reason. Notice in these official NASA images that the layout of the Earth is never the same. In 2002, North America is this size. In 2012, it's this size. And in 2015, it's yet again a totally different size than both of those. But the fact of the matter is, none of these pictures are real anyway. NASA employee Rob Simon has gone on record saying that the Earth is photoshopped because it has to be.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space.
Now, why don't we have any pictures of the Earth? It's 2017, and you think this is normal? Maybe because we can't leave the Earth, just like in the flat Earth model, which has a sky barrier known as the firmament or the dome? NASA tries to be clever and say that we can't leave the Earth due to...
If you watch the trajectory of the space shuttle, it doesn't go straight up. It always goes in a curve and out to sea. The point is that they actually go horizontal. The space shuttle goes horizontal. It never goes any further up. It goes horizontal, very, very low down in the atmosphere, because it drops its external tank while it's still in the atmosphere. So, you know, it's still in the atmosphere while it's horizontal, so it never gets any higher. And it goes out of sight, not because it goes too high, because it goes too far downrange. And it seems that nobody's ever on the space shuttle. And the proof of that is the Challenger disaster. In, I believe it's 1986, the Challenger exploded just after takeoff and killed 7 astronauts. But it turns out that 6 of the astronauts are still alive, and most of them are using their original names. And you can find pictures of them. They're using the same names, and they're doing ordinary jobs now. Teachers, lecturers, lawyers, whatever. But they're still alive. I think it's a mock-up. Again, when you zoom into it with Photoshop, you'll see where they've used the clone tool in Photoshop to take a picture of one of the clouds and stamp it in various places around the picture. And they got lazy. If you were to go to NASA and download one of their photos of the Earth in the moon's sky and put it in Photoshop, okay, drop the saturation and the levels down, you'll see that the Earth has been pasted in, because you'll see a rectangular box around the Earth. It's all fraud, it's all fake. Pretty much everything NASA puts out is fraudulent. There are no images of Earth from space. The only one that NASA actually claims is a photograph was from 1972, and it's the famous picture. It's got Africa sort of near the top, and it's the same picture they've been using for the last 40 or 50 years in every textbook. Every other image is what they call a composite. It's
The similar Hebrew word nasha means to lead astray, to delude, to morally seduce. It's then no wonder that the NASA logo contains a serpent's tongue, serpents having been a symbol for deception throughout mythology. On the gravestone of Wernher von Braun, one of NASA's early rocket developers, there is a reference to a Bible verse that talks about our dome, our firmament. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheath his handiwork.
easy. If everybody's been trained into believing that this is real, right, and there's space, and it's within our interest to explore space and you know, go to the moon, go to Mars, yeah, people will pay for it, and they're making billions. And yeah, there's more to it, because I believe there's a big deception coming.
Photo and video given to us by NASA is completely faked and riddled with CGI. Here we see a supposed video feed of Earth. Where are all the satellites? Along with 2,271 satellites orbiting the Earth, there are 500,000 fragments of space junk. And we're supposed to believe that in all of the feeds they give us, we are constantly, conveniently witnessing portions of the Earth without any of these man-made obstructions? This is absolutely bullshit. We have the 4,000 degree Fahrenheit temperature in space. There are only 7 elements on the periodic table that could withstand this heat, and none of them have been used for satellites. Satellites allegedly reside in the thermosphere, where temperatures can soar 4,000 degrees and more. This is simply not possible.
Saying is, when I look at all of it, when I look at the photographic evidence, or I look at the fact that we haven't been back since 1972, when I look at the fact that no humans except the Apollo astronauts have ever gone through the Van Allen radiation belt, the fact that no one's even done a flyby around the moon since then, it seems weird to me. When I look at the press conference and I see Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins nervous and weird and obviously like being deceptive after they came back.
You can see on the back of his shirt a couple of upticks on either side where you would expect wires to come in on either side of that harness. They're often portraying that this is live. Of course, these things are fully choreographed and edited in advance to make sure that there's nothing too obvious.
Looks CGI to me.
That gives away that this is a suspension in front of a blue screen hoax.